the freedom of the individual, the freedom of the individual, the freedom of the individual. I mean, what it is, it's a hard left agenda, driven mostly by Marxism, which wants to abolish borders, abolish national identity. It doesn't really believe in national democracy as a concept, believes that we should sort things out at a bigger global level.
Does he mean the blue world border?
And it's been able to force its way because natural conservatives have just been cowardly.
Does he mean all those small entrepreneurs that did not invest in their businesses when big corporations undercut them, the government stopped them trading and the banks foreclosed on their loans because they were solvent? Does he mean those cowards?
If you don't approve of this measure, it means you want to destroy. It means you want to destroy the planet, and your children and your grandchildren, will all die because we're going to raise by 5 degrees. And throughout all of this, people have retreated.
I think he does.
And the winners, in many ways, the winners of all of this, have actually been the big businesses, have actually been the big banks.
Wow, do you know? I think he's onto something. Nigel is keen to highlight that the current system bears resemblance to Marxist or hard left principles, yet he refrains from explicitly using the label communism. This avoidance is intentional, as he believes that while these labels might be accurate, they wouldn't align with the objectives of the Blue World Border agenda, both in the present and the future. The Blue World Border, as Nigel suggests, recognizes that the only way to establish global control without self-destruction is through the methods they are currently employing. They are actively working to eliminate any potential challenges to their dominance. However, it's essential to understand that the Blue World Border's primary goal isn't to create a stable society for the betterment of humanity as a whole, but rather to maintain their control over a population they regard as unknowing slaves. Nigel, who is an operative within the Blue World Border, aims to steer individuals back into the Blue World Border system. To achieve this, he distorts the facts by insinuating that conservatives have shown cowardice in not opposing wokeism. In reality, those who possess the ability to influence the wokeism issue are often financially incentivized to align with the wokeism and communist agenda, courtesy of the Blue World Border.
Because the environment they create is so anti-competitive for the SMEs, the small and medium-sized businesses.
Now he is taking the piss.
To actually be able to maintain a strong position. And I want to argue very strongly that we need to return to capitalism. Now the word alarm bells go, but we're not living in capitalism.
No.
We're living in corporatism. We're living in an age, and collectivism too, but an age where big government, big business, big banks work hand in glove.
Nigel is attempting to instill hope by suggesting that our current system is more a product of corporatism than true capitalism. However, he conveniently omits that corporatism is an inevitable byproduct of capitalism, where only one entity can ultimately prevail in a relentless struggle. This narrative subtly encourages the belief that a return to the past, a time when capitalism appeared to reign supreme, may be possible.
By the way, I first said that 15 years ago in the Strasbourg Parliament. 15 years ago, I could see the way this was going. And I think the world is a better, happier, richer place, more innovative, if men and women have got the ability to found their own businesses and go out and succeed.
Is he suggesting the entrepreneurs find a planet that is not controlled by the Blue World Border?
That's where you get competition in price, competition in quality, innovation, and ideas. And I think we've turned our back on all of this. But
why?
Nigel appears to have a nervous cough when confronted with topics that he knows should be blatantly evident to anyone not under the influence of mind control, such as the question of why we've seemingly deviated from capitalism. However, as he becomes aware of his audience, he manages to compose himself but offers an utterly nonsensical response. Then, he transitions into discussing the concept of hope. It's quite astonishing to hear what he has to say, but let's listen to his words.
Oh, because I say this leftist agenda has been pushed, and everyone, no one dares stand in the way because you get called nasty names, and the Twitter mob attack you, and all of those things. But you know something? Pendulums all through history.
Overcorrect, overswing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 1658 in this country, you could be imprisoned for overtly celebrating Christmas. if Cromwell's men broke into the home and you had decorations up over the fireplace, that was it. You'd be dragged off to the neck.
Yeah.
And by 1680, we'd sunk into Hogarth's Gin Lane.
Right, yeah.
Total drunken debauchery in
Yeah,
London.
yeah.
So the pendulum was going in the 17th century all over the place. And I think there will be a massive turnaround in what happens in the corporate world for this simple reason. You can read all this guff, that ESG investing and not investing in fossil fuels. And you read all this stuff. You can read about diversity, that you promote people within a team on the basis of not their ability, but where they come from and what group they're in. That somehow this is going to make us richer and more successful. Do you know what? I think, if I look at the banks and the kinds of people now being promoted, I think the next banking crisis can't be far away.
Nigel, in a meandering way, has reached his conclusion on why the banks and the system is failing for the people. It's because the corporations are employing transgender people and not employing white boys, like himself. And definitely not because of a Blue World Border plan for a new Chinese-style CBDC social credit system.
If you're over-promoting people without the ability. So in the end, I think it'll be the pension funds, I think it'll be the big investors that say to companies, you know what? Forget about all this political stuff. Just do your job. Just do your job. We're your shareholders. We've invested money in you. We expect to see a profit and a dividend. That's kind of how the world has always worked.
He's taking the piss again. He's telling us the people who print money who have shown us over the last 3 years they do not need profits to stay in business, are going to change their tune as regards the CBDC social credit, guaranteed no trouble from the slaves ever, system, because they need money.
And by the way, I mean, do you remember just 3 or 4 years ago, modern monetary theory? Do you remember that? Modern monetary theory. We can borrow as much as we want as a government or a company or a person because interest rates are zero. Modern monetary theory. Money grows on trees. Anybody talking about that? About modern monetary theory now? Nobody.
The Blue World Border is still printing money and bailing out banks with it, by paying off the debt racked up by failing banks and selling the profitable parts to J.P. Morgan for peanuts. He's right though, no one is talking about printing money out of thin air, because the Blue World Border owns all mainstream media and all actors with an audience greater than 100 people. Just to be clear, the Blue World Border actually lives by printing money out of thin air. If it were to stop printing imaginary money, it would die. Funny how Nigel is implying they do not print money out of thin air anymore. I wonder why.
This is very much the same. The pendulum will come back on all of this, and I really hope. I mean, all I've done.
All he has accomplished is to buy the Blue World Border some additional time with an impressive performance, diverting people's attention away from reality and relegating that reality to the shadowy recesses of the minds of those unwittingly held captive, much as he did with Brexit.
Is to say something in public that a lot of people in private knew was happening.
This artful procedure gives those who can perceive a slither of reality a belief that a figure with influence within the political system has acknowledged the issue and intends to take action. This distraction enables the overworked and underpaid masses to concentrate on the daunting task of chipping away at that staggering $300 trillion debt.
And didn't know quite how to fight back. So, but I do feel, Rob, that I've sparked a genuine debate here, and I want to emphasise something as well. This is not political. This is not left wing, right wing. This is actually about, the freedom of the individual.
It's rather amusing how Nigel had a noticeable nervous cough when he began to assert that his political efforts within the Blue World Border's political apparatus were geared toward preserving individual freedom within a system that enslaves people with debt. Quite the curious coincidence, isn't it?
The freedom of the individual. The freedom of the individual. The freedom of the individual.